CRC Academy too. All right, we're live, guys. SOS Conference Roundtable. Save our sites. They told us not to name it Save Our Sites. A few people told us that.
Mm-hmm.
And we politely said, no, we do need to be saved. We need to be saved from the industry chaos. So we've got a whole panel of people, maybe more coming on here and there a little bit later. Um, Everyone, maybe go around, introduce yourselves. I have my CRC Daisy, so she's here for the fresh, brand new perspective, brand new CRC, also in the CRC Academy. And then everyone else just go around and introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Dr. Fox. I'm the founder of the Clinical Research Payment Network, CRPN, and of Land of Lincoln Clinical Research, our local IRO in Illinois. And I'm a CEO at an autism nonprofit, and I'm a clinical research and autism advocate. It's nice to meet everyone.
I'll go next. Hi, you guys. I'm Ashley Margo. I am the founder of the AM Approach, one of the co-founders of the Clinical Research Circle that oversees the Latinos in Clinical Research, University of Clinical Research, and also one of the co-founders of SOS.
Ivan?
I can go next.
Or Judy?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Judy Galindo, co-founder also of the Clinical Research Circle, oversees Latinos in Clinical Research. Also one of the, co-founders of SOS, and also co-founder of a small clinical research site in Perro County, California.
Monica. You're muted, Monica. You're muted. You're muted. Unmute.
Hello, everybody. My name is Monica Cuitiba. I am one of the co-founders of the Circle, the Clinical Research Circle that oversees Latinos in Clinical Research, the Clinical Research University, the SOS conference. That's what we are here for today, for the roundtable to speak about and to speak up, right? Basically to talk about the sites and all the things that we usually discuss. But obviously it's important to hear everybody's point of view, everybody's it will be lovely to see vocalize the sites, right? And obviously everybody in the industry, because it's not just the sites, it's for many things that are happening in the industry too, that affects not just the sites but everybody else in the environment, right? Or in the not the environment, in the group or in the industry. So that's it. I give the mic to Chris Sauber.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank you very much, Monica. My name's Chris Sauber. I'm the official representative. I don't see my finger here. Official representative of the SOS conference. Just kidding. But I am part of the SOS conference, member of LICR, site owner, do some consulting work, etc. So basically summarizes my relationship with everybody here.
All right, we have a few guests. We have a few guests coming up. They're texting me they're going to run late, but if you've got a question, put it on the chat, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, wherever you might be watching. This will go on YouTube later. Let's start with that. Maybe icebreaker.
Well, just 1 second, Dan. Ivan, you haven't introduced yourself.
Oh, my bad.
I'd be one of those guests.
Ivan.
No, that's fine. That's all good. I'm owner and founder of... Go ahead.
Ivan. Okay. I got to introduce you, okay? You are... Ivan's won awards, guys. Like legit advertising awards in other industries. Consumer packaged goods. He's going to be too humble to talk about this, but he's bringing his expertise from CPG industry to research, and he's successful. Like he recruits for myself and Chris for a couple of our academies, for our sites. using social media, and he's going to be on a webinar next week. So Ivan knows his stuff. Okay, he might be relatively new to research within like the last 5 years, but this guy knows he knows what he's doing. He's an expert. Like, he's an award-winning expert in other industries. So there you go, Ivan. Introduce yourself, sir.
Okay, well, thanks for that. Yeah, so I'm owner and founder of Research Metrics. We're a full-service clinical research trial recruitment agency, tantamount to a creative company specializing in branding, content creation for the acquisition of patient recruitment in clinical trials. So yeah, been around for a while. Happy to be here. Love to participate in this conversation.
Ivan, it's good to meet you. Well, we can do the icebreakers. I don't know if I can compete with that, man. You're like a superstar.
Well, my icebreaker was going to be like all the stakeholders, so everyone except Ivan right now. Maybe Ivan can also share.
Yeah.
Why is Save Our Sites a good name?
Huh. I kind of got into that too. People said, well, you make sites sound weak. Why do sites need saving? Maybe just the weak ones need to be saved and the strong ones need to go through, like Darwinism or something. And turns out a lot of the people who are saying that turns out to be private equity backed people who have a bunch of money that they don't have to worry about surviving because someone takes care of them.
Yeah.
So I can tell you from personal experience, personal and professional, not only in CRPN's network, but also from my interactions with the industry, sites do need to be saved. And realistically, they need to be saved because they are put into these very compromising positions on a business level, on a logistics level, on a regulatory level, to where literally the weight of the entire industry is on their shoulders. And if they fail, it's their fault. It's no one else's fault. Ideally, the one thing that I could say is sites need to be saved and we need to save ourselves. We're going to come together and make sure that from the bottom up, we're going to create an industry standard so that we can actually survive all of the things that we have to endure. Ashley?
Let's see. Well, it's hard to kind of back that. It's pretty on point, really. And then I would also kind of just come from I guess you could say just the founder end of things. One, it's a name, and obviously who founded the name, which is us. It was because of the fact that it resonated with everybody here, right? And so ultimately, I think it comes down to what we're bringing, what we're offering in the conference. That matters the most. Maybe not get too hung up on some of the smaller little aspects of things. I mean, the name is the name, but it comes down to perspective. So if you want to have a negative perspective, be my guest, right? But for the most part, we're here to bring change, do something positive for the community. So we'd like that to just pretty much be the focus and not necessarily give time or energy to aspects that don't see that we're trying to bring just positivity for sites. Because if we want to save our sites, it's because we want to help. We want to bring something that can not only bring the sites together, right? More communication, but also for the effect of being able to actively grow further, right? And that's what we need, because we need more patients out there. We need more studies going on. We're here to help.
Yeah, and I kind of wanted to add, I don't want to repeat what Dr. Fox said, but these protocols are becoming more and more challenging as we get them, especially for a lot of the therapeutic areas we work on. And I feel like we need to collaborate more. We need to help each other more. We need to get more help from the industry sponsor CROs. And I feel like so many things have changed over the years, and I've been in it for 18 years. And instead of getting better, it's like getting harder, and it shouldn't get harder when we have so many professionals in this industry, so many of us doing what we're doing. And we need to fix it. Like, how can we fix it? How can we do better, right?
Chris?
What is desired of me?
Chris, why do you think we named this organization, this conference, Save Our Sites? Why do you think sites need to be saved?
Good question. I suppose sites could use a little help in getting studies. As Judy just implied, they need help with both recruiting subjects, and this kind of coincided with our LICR mission, as well as designing studies that are simpler and easier to execute.
I have to, before we go to Monica, I have to say Robert Goldman looks badass with a backwards hat. I'm just saying that. So, you know, I see 90s rapper in the mix here. Monica, why do
I
you
love.
think sites need to be saved?
I agree with you about Robert. Well, I mean, the sites are. If we think about the whole industry needs to be safe, but the sites are the tip of the iceberg, right? When we fix it, when we have or help the sites to get solutions and to improve everything in that from that perspective, everything else is going to be like a domino effect for the whole industry. And it is important that we think about the sites, because the sites are basically where all the job is done. Basically, the field, the job of the field is done on the sites, right? If the sites doesn't exist, then where are we going to get the patients for, where the data is going to be coming from, right? If the sites are not performing, or if the sites are not being safe or help the way it should be, then that's why the rest of the challenges exist. Because if there is not help from the rest of the stakeholders in the industry, then the sites cannot perform the 100% they need to perform, right? Or at least on a higher level. So this is something that will solve not just the site problem, but the whole industry. So I think it's very important that we all put things in perspective and see the big picture of this situation.
That just sparked so much in me, Monica. Number one thing in my mind is GCP. We've all taken GCP. I guess maybe it's maybe old school of me, but in many ways, I see the sites as kind of like that balance of power to make sure that we perform research in a very uh, thorough way that is not biased. And I think that that is part of the research triangle that cannot be compromised for patient safety and for the integrity of the trial. It's very important that we treat sites with the regulatory and quality respect that they deserve.
Exactly. Hmm.
Ivan, why do you think sites need to be saved?
Well, it's funny. Like we were talking earlier, and the industry has been growing by leaps and bounds. And with such aggressive growth and different sites coming on board, having specialization and so forth can be difficult. There's a lot of people out there looking to collaborate and not necessarily having the right opportunities. There's definitely been a normalization since COVID, like this idea of research trials. People are more adept to participate in clinical research. We saw a boost to our numbers during and then shortly thereafter in terms of overall recruitment. And yeah, from my perspective, I see a lot of sites struggling, trying to figure out a very complex equation. That is, you guys are the third parties. You're supposed to be the objective individuals, the ones who bring truth to, sponsors have, I wouldn't call it an agenda, but I mean, they want to see certain results from their efforts, and we've got to have someone out there as the arbiter, and that's the research sites. So.
Arbiter, perfect word. That's what I was looking for. So we have to save the arbiter. So Robert Goldman, 20-second introduction. Why do you think sites need to be saved?
Well, I can tell you, they're our bread and butter. The buck stops with them, quite frankly. And the generation of the quality data, the patient experience, the site experience as a sponsor representative is just critical to me as a person, number one. And number two, as a sponsor who uses sites to ensure, that we are delivering quality data, it just doesn't work without it. And, I'm personally a huge advocate, as everybody on the panel knows, to ensure that, the sites are not only adequately compensated, but compensated in a timely manner. So there's a lot of barriers and problems that prevent this, but we need to do everything we can to save our sites.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And we've got all of these different challenges and problems that we're going to do, so much so that we made a conference about it. What do we think we need to do to save our sites? Just we have everyone have a chance to come through. Tell me what mine payments. I'll just get that one out of the way. That's mine. Let's go down the list here. Dan, you're just listening if that's okay, unless you want to pipe in.
Yeah, Daisy just asked me, like, why do sites, she doesn't know, she's a new CRC, why do sites put up with not getting paid?
Ah, yes. That's a good question. Let's answer that, Daisy. Everyone tell your opinion. Daisy, my opinion of that is they're scared. So any kind of an oppressive tyranny where one person has power over another will make someone tolerate something that may not necessarily be appropriate. People are afraid that if they speak up, they'll be blacklisted and they won't be considered for future trials. I think we'll just kind of put that out there. And it's a very unfortunate truth. We see even Robert, I know I've talked to sponsors before and it's, oh yeah, we really didn't, these sites asked too much. So we just had to go find another one. They're just kind of a replaceable component in the equation of a sponsor. And unfortunately, I think that's what prevents a lot of the change that we're trying to do. That's why they tolerate it. Ivan, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd say realistic recruitment goals, right? There's been a lot of changes. There was a time, Facebook, for instance, / Meta, which is one of the most influential platforms when it comes to research trial recruitment. We used to be really be able to be very targeted around an indication or a particular condition. We literally write the condition down, and the algorithm would seek out individuals who had some form of association or groups of people who were grouping around something like cancer or what have you. But we could be exceptionally targeted. Well, nowadays, that's no longer the case, right? There's all kinds of reforms and changes that have been made because of privacy issues. There was far too much influence in, elections, say 3 or 4 years ago, where a particular Facebook employee was selling basically a list, effectively an algorithmic solution to influence politics. And all this stuff started crashing down. So in a venue where there were no rules, now we're coming back to the same rules that were applied to, say, traditional TV. So realistic recruitment goals, it's kind of a have to, right? Like, how can anyone be competitive in research trials if they're being held to a standard that no one could meet? Because everyone's standard is this in a phase 2 or phase 3 is get us as many potential patients as possible for randomization.
Yeah, and we talked about that just recently. Sites have to, as an industry standard, lie on their feasibilities just to be awarded the trial, even if it's not realistic. And for the sites that are actually being honest, they're being punished. Ashley,
Right.
what do you think? Why do sites tolerate what they do?
I think, I think there's multiple reasons, but I do feel that it's a lot of these newer insights or sites that have been in the industry for some time going into, like you see, a new therapeutic area. They're really wanting to expand into that. And so they're just kind of feeling the emotions for that and dealing with the sponsor and or the therapeutic area that they're in. In previous experience, definitely there's kind of what you had just mentioned, Dr. Fox, kind of like a nervousness about communicating more accurately with the CRO or sponsor in regards to what they need. It comes down to just not good communication whatsoever. Things get put on the back end, communication, and then all the way to the point where it's an issue. Then they come forward. They're like, well, it's just that we didn't know, and X, Y, Z. It's just, I think there's a huge gap in the communication. So for me personally at SOS, I think one of the things that should really be communicated more is on the education end for sites, educating obviously new incoming people that are getting hired, how and why it's very important to communicate thoroughly with your CRO and sponsor. And even sometimes at that point, over jumping the CRO if necessary, because even CROs can mess up, right? Or not have good communication and being able to know how to go through that process and reaching out to the sponsor.
Ironically, you could stick with the analogy and say maybe to save our sites, we need to rock the boat a little bit. And we need our lifeguards.
Gem and mineral show reference there.
Yeah, rock the boat. No, And what really resonated with me with what you said there, Ashley, was I think it's really important to inform sites of their rights. This is what is okay to tolerate, and this is where this is just totally inappropriate. You have rights to this, and you're not being treated correctly. So, what do you think, Judy? Why do sites tolerate what they do?
I think it's a variety of reasons as well that were mentioned right now. But I actually agree with Ashley. I think there's a lack of communication because there's a lot of people at the CRO sponsor level who's responsible for various things. So the monitors are not the ones paying you. So they don't know what's going on in the payment department. Even project management doesn't work in payment department. There's a whole other department in charge of accounting and issuing this payment. So somehow there's some kind of miscommunication, or this person didn't send something to this to get you set up in the system, whatever it is. And so you have to escalate that. And I think a lot of sites don't realize that they need to go, if you're not getting a response right away from them, let your monitor know right away. They escalate it to a project manager, whatever the next person in charge. Keep escalating until it gets somewhere. If you're not getting every response from them, go over their heads. Contact whoever you need to on that contact list that you have for studies until you get an answer, until you get paid. And if you're not getting paid, cancel your monitor visits, cancel your recruitment calls. All of these things will ensure that you get paid a lot faster. But I don't think sites realize they can do that. They don't do it. Maybe they're afraid. I've done that and it sure works. I haven't had to do it in a while, but I did have a situation recently where we just didn't get paid on 3 studies, same sponsor, similar studies. They were like sister studies. And it came down to that the payment department didn't get what they needed to do to set us up correctly. It had nothing to do with the monitor. It had nothing to do with the project manager. Maybe somewhere in between when those people forgot to send something, but it was more the payments department. And it wasn't a good excuse, but it was a lack of communication. And if I hadn't reached out, who knows how long it would have taken to get paid.
And it took me a long time to make. So sometimes I think when you, as a site start, you talk to a CRO and you just assume that if you tell someone at a CRO that the entire CRO organization knows. No, it's the exact opposite. I find sometimes, especially in startup, where you've got 4 different CRO departments contacting you and you are the hub of that conversation, but you can tell that nobody's talking to each other at all. So it's really important as a site that you work really closely, have strong communication with your regulatory and your ops groups on your administrative group to make sure you are all on the same page, because odds are you're going to have to direct the conversation with all of the CRO departments that you're working with.
Exactly.
So Chris, why do you think sites tolerate what they do in this industry?
First, I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit. So the way initially this was framed is that sponsors do not pay. I think that's inaccurate. It's more the slow pay. I've been in this industry for 15 years. I've dealt with thousands of sites, and I only can recall twice, sponsor-wise, that they didn't pay what they were owed to the sites. Now, slow pay, absolutely. That's very, very common in this industry, and many, many sites have complaints with that, and rightfully so. It's hard to stay operational if you're on a budget and you're not getting paid for the work that you're doing. That's completely understandable. How that's resolved, not really sure. I think there's too many moving parts, as Judy kind of pointed out, in the industry in terms of getting paid for the sites. I mean, I think Robert can attest to this. Not to put you on the spot, Robert, but Robert, he's in charge of I shouldn't say in charge, CEO of a sponsor, I believe, and the CRO that's been appointed is not paying as they're supposed to. I believe that's been an issue with Robert, and that's not his department. He's not the CRO. He's not responsible for paying these sites. And I mean, this is an issue, and there's just too many moving components. I think the resolution is to remove a lot of these different departments and have it specialized under the sponsor. But hey, they're going to do as they do. CROs are going to do as they do. Unless there's a real push in the industry, that's not probably going to change.
So what's your record, Chris? What's your record slow pay? Like number of days without pay on a trial?
So generally speaking, for those that are not familiar, the contracts, generally speaking, either stipulate 30 or 90 days in terms of payment to the sites. The worst I've seen is about 6 months beyond what was promised.
My record's 3 years. I don't know if you remember, I celebrated the 1 year anniversary. 1 year anniversary of someone not paying an invoice. And a lot of the sites in the CRPN network are the same way. On average for trials, you're looking at kind of what Chris was saying, about 6 months on a net 30. But there are many cases that I am working with right now to work with these sites where they have been doing 18 months to 2 years without pay because their contract fell through the cracks and people forgot about them. But they definitely didn't forget about the work that was required. So, I mean, I agree to a point. Slow pay is an industry standard, almost like an industry expectation. But the negligence, the gross negligence is becoming a far higher rate.
So I'm curious, that invoice that you didn't get paid on for 2 years, what was the issue with that? What was the amount?
It was literally like dry ice. It was like $60. And kept on escalating, we're working on it. We have a slow computer system. We integrated, we migrated, we did this and that. Everything was approved. The documentation was there. They just did not pay. And it was on their radar. They had it.
No,
they just
sorry.
Did not pay. So finally, so what was that?
I was just going to say, and I agree, invoices are a different beast. I was more referring to like scheduled visits.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. The invoices oftentimes are a bigger issue in terms of slow pay.
Yeah. Automated payments are a little bit better, but invoices get lost in the weeds.
Yeah,
a lot.
They do. I agree.
But when 34% of a site's revenue comes from invoices, it's really important to keep that managed. So,
you think
Monica?
34?
Yeah, I think that's another important point.
Go ahead, Judy.
Yeah, sorry. Another thing that Chris brought up that's important is the invoices. That's an issue for sites because there's so many invoiceable items that is so time consuming that it's hard to keep up with sometimes. Honestly, for one of our studies, it took me like a year to submit a bunch of invoiceable items because the system that they had was horrible. So I had trouble using it forever. And then I figured it out finally. But it's so time consuming.
You want to hear something hilarious, Judy? I'm literally working on a budget right now for a site in which they did not include, you had to invoice for, they did not include informed consent at screening.
What?
Patient total.
Are you serious?
You had to invoice for it. So this is
you have to invoice for that? No.
Yes, you have to invoice for
an ICF invoice because, that doesn't always happen.
No. That's
only when they want.
But the reason behind this is because sponsors or CROs, whoever's in charge of the budget, knows it's difficult on the sites to invoice for all of these things. And they know a lot of money is not going to be collected or asked for.
Yep. Right. It's like gift cards. Who hates gift cards? Because it's like you just give a gift card.
Sit there forever.
Yeah, just sit there forever. So Monica, why do you think sites tolerate what they do? Why do you think they put up with all this?
Well, besides everything that you guys have said, I mean, for me, one of the biggest topics is obviously communication. That's something that affects everything, and everybody just point fingers like it's not me, it's
Yep.
this, it's not this department, it's that department, no, it's
Mhm.
not me, it's the other organization. And at the end of the day, nobody responds, right? And at the end of the day, the ones that heard obviously are the sites. I have experienced both, that they have not paid for the visit on time, and they have not paid for invoice, right? Um, Obviously, it was a special situation, but still, even if it was a special situation, because another clinic had the same name, but it was totally located in a different area, totally different PI, totally different everything in the contract. Because of bad communication, they were using the information of a different clinic than ours.
Oh
So,
no.
and I kept on giving them the right information, but because of the
Yep.
broken
Yep.
communication, everybody had their own different perspective. So, it is important, obviously, to fix the communication, and to have like a streamline of communication. It's not just responsibility for the sites, but for the whole ecosystem,
Mhm.
that we need to fix this part, because it's affecting not just the sites, it's affecting everything, as I was mentioning before. If the site is affected, then everything goes in domino effect.
Yep.
And if the study goes behind, then they have to spend even more money. If they don't help the sites, they have to spend more money on other different things, right? Like, for example, in doing and extending the time of period that they have initially projected for the study, right?
Mhm.
Because everybody's just it's like we have a lot of responsibilities in the industry, a lot of guidelines and things like that. But it's like when a condition comes around. Let's say, for example, AIDS. When AIDS came, it happens to everybody but me. It will never happen to me. So everybody
Mhm.
just avoid the responsibility, and everybody avoids to learn about it. Everybody avoids to actually go inside the actual problem or the actual condition, right? So it is important for everybody to feel responsible, because if in either position, in either situation, in either area, everybody's
Mhm.
responsible.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that is important for everybody to see the perspective, and obviously the sponsors, if they want to see their drugs and their project uh, work faster or improvement in the actual whole ecosystem, the site is the answer for that to start
Mhm.
with, and then we go from there.
And that brought up a memory for me as I was working with a big CRO as a new director at the site. I told them 7 times for 7 months straight, hey, you need to take this old director's name off of your invoice because they're not here anymore. Okay, okay, we'll fix it. We'll fix it. It never changed. That director's name, who knows? That director's name is still on there, and that's 2 directors ago. So the communication is key, and nobody ever fixes it. Once it goes into the black hole of CRO databases, it's not managed, and so it creates a lot of separation between what's right and what should happen. Robert, why do you think sites put up with what they do? From a sponsor's perspective, I don't know what you hear, but
Yeah.
what do you think?
Well, I think there's a bunch of reasons. I obviously agree with everything that was said by the panel so far, but I think to take it one step further, it's about the patients,
Hmm.
right? And there's always this concern, everybody gets weird when they start talking about money. Everybody. I don't understand it really. It's just the way it is. There's something about talking finance. A lot of people either A, just don't have the insight into it. Number one, like the CRAs, they're so disconnected from what their work order is, what's in scope, what's out of scope, what they should be doing, what they shouldn't be doing. Yeah, they can refer to their plans, but they're not in these financial discussions, and they have honestly no idea what the site's budget is. And so everybody's gets really weird when they start talking finances. So we got to figure out that one. Number two is I think sites might just be worried, for the sake of the patient. At least maybe I'm hoping that's in the back of their mind, right?
Yep.
If I
Yep.
raise this concern, and I have to end or terminate this study on behalf of the business because it's a business decision, I'm now removing an opportunity or a potential treatment to these patients who have graciously given us their time and hope. So I think it's a slippery slope. I think there's a lot to consider there. And I can tell you, it's there's a lot of challenges. Grants teams are often ex-US. There's time zone issues. There's communication gaps. Sites who need a lot of time to invoice things that should just be part of the budget from the get-go. Like, I mean, I can't even believe what Chris is saying around ICFs requiring an invoiceable line item. That is so ridiculous, right? So it makes me ask, the following questions. Number one, who designed that budget? Do they even know what they're doing? And who at the sponsor approved that to even go through there? I really don't believe there's malice there in terms of we're going to hope the site doesn't invoice us, because that's just ridiculous, right? Or at least it should be. But again, nothing really surprises me anymore at this point. It wouldn't surprise me if that were to be actually made. So I think it's a variety of reasons that sites tolerate this. They certainly shouldn't have to, but I can tell you from a sponsor perspective, I'm grateful they do, because if sites were to throw their hands up at the 31st day of or the 1 day mark after not being paid, we would be in trouble. We'd be in trouble. And there's a lot of, again, communication silos and just lack of awareness on what needs to be there so that people can make informed decisions about why things are happening the way they happen. So I also believe, we need to, and I was talking to Dan this morning. I mean, we need to eliminate the barriers, get rid of the middleman. There's no reason. That's why I'm such a believer in your mission, Doc, that we're looking at the CRPN model, and, a sponsor can employ your company, your network, and let you manage the funds. And that way sites they don't forget this 30-day wait. You can be paid next week or however long it takes you to process the encounter, right? So, we need to rock the boat. Like you guys said, we've got to shake things up. I mean, if you keep doing this, everyone on this panel, with the exception of myself, I've never been a site owner.
Same.
Oh, okay. But I'm just saying it's why have you guys I mean, you guys collectively have, I don't know, 60, 80 years collectively of site ownership experience. My question to you is, why do you guys put up with it? Right? I mean, it's
Yep.
it's like
Yep.
and what I'm trying to say is we keep doing things the same way over and over and expect different results. Oh, this sponsor is going to do better. This CRO is going to do better. This grants team is going to do different. No, it's you guys are going to keep experiencing the same thing over and over and over, because, like Chris mentioned, it's kind of the norm at this point. Like, it's expected. It's not so surprising to wait an average of 6 months. That's really unfortunate, right? You don't go to a restaurant, have dinner today, and then pay them in 6 months.
Well,
Robert,
yeah, credit
I
card.
so love what you just mentioned, because
Yep.
the thing is, like,
Yep.
first of all, the sites also needs to get educated about how the sponsor work, because it's not just like I say, we have to educate the sponsors about how the sites work. The sponsors have to educate us about how the sponsor works, because many of the things we don't know. We don't know, and how are we going to get. I mean, it's like having a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and this person expecting us to read their brain, right? And how the relationship is going to work if we don't really know how things work in between both of us. So, and also the CRO, and it's interesting that you were mentioning some things about this the sponsor today, because last week we had a meeting with a CRO, and they were educating us about how things work. And for me was like shading me a lot of light, because I didn't know in the how things work before, and now I understand some things more. But that's part of studying a good communication, because otherwise everybody's just gonna keep doing their own thing in their own world, and nothing is gonna change. And
Right.
now that you mentioned why we need to do things different to get different results, that's why SOS was born. We want to do things different. We need to standardize many things in the industry, because without standards and without these limits, everybody's gonna be around like crazy creative.
Exactly.
We're gonna keep seeing more creative budgets like that. I saw one budget never before. I know that I have a longest experience, but it was great. It was funny for me to see that they were putting, this is gonna take you 10 minutes to complete.
Yep.
Therefore, the cost
Yep.
is gonna be this. Like you're
Yep.
getting paid
Full
by
micromanagement.
hour, and
Yep.
I was just like, really? You're telling me that 10 minutes of a psychiatrist is gonna be the same as 10 minutes of a phlebotomist?
No.
Nothing. It's not that we're putting anybody on top of anybody. Nobody's worth more than anybody.
Right.
But when we talk about the experience, when we talk about the profession, obviously it's such a big difference. And when I saw the budget, I kind of laughed, and I just like, I don't think this is gonna be part of our site, just because I don't want to put the whole team or everybody in so much stress with a study that, plus, it was extremely complex. And the site is not getting paid what it's worth. It's like, I mean, obviously, if we think about, the sites are like the soldiers in the industry, right? But the soldiers go to war, so we need to get very, very good equipment.
So
Yeah.
I remembered something, Robert, when you were just talking, and I think that that's kind of what resonates with me. To all of the site owners or anyone who's worked with the patients before, how many of you have experienced a patient crying in front of you because they were so happy? Has anyone experienced that yet?
Yeah,
Like,
can you repeat the question? Sorry.
how many of you have experienced a patient crying in front of you because they were so happy from the
I have
results of a trial?
yesterday,
You you
literally.
do not forget that moment when you experience it, because you know for a fact that you literally just changed a life. And I can tell you from someone who's had to go through this forever, we have put our necks on the line as a site. We performed all of the regulatory docs to keep the patients on the study, to keep them going without a contract. Prime example, it was last year, April, a protocol hit, a regulatory protocol. They had to file it. We had to get the patients on. We had to reconsent them. This was a very important life-saving drug. The sponsor did not send us a contract until that following October, which means that we put our necks on the line. We put all liability in place. We filed the regulatory. We put our PI on the spot without a contractual assurance, even without assurance of payment, so that we could keep those patients receiving the drugs that they needed. And that is what drives me. And I can tell you it's not right, but sometimes I think that that dedication to the care of the patient is taken advantage of by business people, by calling us bad business people. Well, it's your fault you run bad business. Well, those people obviously have never cared for a patient. And I mean, I could just look at them and say, shame on you for even thinking that way. That's pretty heartless, to be honest. So, honestly, Robert, that's definitely what keeps me from doing what I'm doing. Is when you look at those patients in the eye and you realize how much it means to them to be on the trial, the money and the contracts definitely take second place.
Exactly.
So,
They pull it,
Yeah,
they use the heartstrings and they tug at it, right?
yeah.
And
Yeah,
take
I
advantage
agree.
of those human emotions.
Hmm.
Robert and the whole panel, I propose another roundtable in which we bring more sponsors and probably CROs to educate us about it, and then we can educate them about it, and this video can go just be
Hmm.
shared everywhere.
Yep.
Or, I mean, I'd
And that's, I
love.
think,
Yeah, go ahead, Ivan. I know you've been raising your hand for a
like,
while. Go ahead.
well, it's funny, like I'm listening to Monica and she's talking about transparency, right, between businesses. And when I listen to the overall conversation, it's about really breeding an empathetic not just corporate culture or site culture, but industry culture. We're listening in the end patient. Like, it's funny. We're doing this to better patient health. Both today and what we can do within our research trials. This is why I got into recruitment. There's a lot of other things I could have been doing, where we can really give back to the community at an early stage. That empathy in business, and what I mean by that is like larger corporate entities, typically the sponsors, they're not running small to modest or medium-sized businesses. Their pockets are cheaper, their business cycles, and trust me, I know this. They don't necessarily understand that there's a direct link. Like the person sitting in the chair making the decision, they think if you want, they should be able to do that, because they themselves have never sat in as independent owners or site owners, having to make payroll, right? And having staff the trial itself. Like, it's a very difficult relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're spot on. I'm getting so when was this planned to end? When was the live event planned to end?
We're coming up to that marker already. Actually, I think we've been going for like 46 minutes.
I mean, honestly, this conversation can go all day long.
Yeah, and as
that's why we're
Right.
doing the conference.
Yeah.
Get more formal discussion. These are just like
the conversation.
Mm-hmm. And
well, I'll just say this to the panel, Dr. Fox. I got to real quickly. I do have to drop real quick because I have a call at 10:30 Pacific Standard Time. But I will be at the SOS conference. I am very excited to meet everybody there. So if you haven't gotten your ticket, I really encourage you to grab one. And it's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me, and we'll talk again, all of us, very soon.
Thanks so
Have
much,
a great
Robert.
day.
Have a good day.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, Robert. Keep being an advocate.
Yeah, I know that it's a busy Friday. Everyone's got a lot of things to do. We didn't even get to go to some of the questions. I still want to know what Scott Stout's idea was. Mr. I have an idea.
I have an idea with MedVector.
Yeah, we do MedVector.
We'll save it for SOS.
I can't. So Clara, I saw that. That's one of my biggest pet peeves. I've heard that time and time again. Well, I guess that's the cost of doing business. My answer was always the cost of doing business is not an unfunded mandate. So just remember that if anyone ever throws it out, you just say, yeah, but it still costs money to do.
Brad, we need the Rock the Boat t-shirt.
Yep, Rock the Boat t-shirt.
Yeah.
Hello from Chicago. Thank you everyone for your support. If you see this later on when it's not live and you want to ask questions, just keep in mind the point of this roundtable is to gain knowledge and ideas for our agenda for SOS. Please speak up. This is your open mic, whether it's live or not. And we really want you to be engaged with this experience for our sites.
And bring your coordinators. Daisy's coming. She's got excited in this hour just sitting here absorbing the info.
Yeah. So Daisy, did we answer your question, Daisy, about the...
Yes, you did.
She's like, yes, y'all did.
I had asked actually, why don't all the small sites get together and do like a huge lawsuit? But you guys answered my question.
That kind of organization, that would be interesting, and we'll
Darshan, I'm sure, can get some ideas going.
Oh no.
Dr.
Class action lawsuit on non-compliance for payment terms. Let's talk about that.
We can get another t-shirt, payment processing, because that's whenever I ask where our payment is, it's always processing.
Mm-hmm.
And I get this it's a gear.
Like a loading screen.
Yeah, processing means maybe I'll think about it that I should send it. Like that means
Maybe I'll submit your invoice because I'm still sitting on it.
Processing is maybe one day, like if I'm in a good mood, I'll consider submitting payment. Maybe.
So real quick, just I guess to kind of wrap it up, you know, and like I had mentioned, like I'm not a site owner, maybe soon to be, possibly in the very far future, but
She will be. She will be.
but I kind of put this on Judy. I'm curious to see your response. So obviously we talked about the issues, right? What are one of some of the solutions, and like maybe give a response in 2 or 3 minutes. What are some of the solutions that you have found that kind of help negate that area? I mean, you still obviously have these issues come up, but what are some of the things that have helped you get across them?
You know, I do have to say, over all the years of doing this, it's got better. It's got a lot better than what it was back in the day. And so I don't have too many of these issues anymore, because over time we've been able to tighten our contract and budget terms. And at one point, I used to not have SIVs unless we got paid for the startup fee, and then we would move forward with SIVs. So you can ensure they sent that as startup payment right away, because they wanted us to get activated. So there's things that I do to ensure we get paid, but it's usually that startup payment that's delayed, and then that first payment that's always delayed. But then after that, it's been more consistent, whatever the terms are, whether it's 30 days, 60 days, 45 days. But I don't actually accept terms anymore more than 30 days.
Like, and then in regards to communication, if there is some sort of delay, what is the process that you take?
I go to the monitor first, and some are helpful, some are not. And then if not, I go to the next person in charge, which is like some kind of manager. If they're usually they escalate it and we get a response. But if they're not helpful, then I go to the next person in charge. And if I have to go to the sponsor, I'm going to go to the sponsor. I'll find that contact on the sponsor, because sometimes, and actually was told this recently, a few times I was told that sometimes the sponsor do not realize that sites are not getting paid, or they're getting paid late. They're assuming the CRO is doing what they're supposed to do. And until that's brought up to the sponsor, then they step in and resolve the issue. I've heard that before. I haven't had to take it that far. Usually when I've gone to like a manager, the second manager in charge, they've been able to figure out. And usually it was some kind of, like I mentioned, a communication issue. My invoice or whatever didn't get to the right person, or we didn't get it set up correctly in the system. But once that was resolved, then it was fine after that.
Sure. So as a monitor, I guess some advice that I would give is usually we get very busy in our emails, and sometimes we even forget, right? Especially if you're dealing with multiple studies and multiple sites. So what I normally recommend is that before you start your study, or if you're in the process of maybe a few weeks prior to getting paid, already having the communication of who's responsible in regardless to CRO and the sponsor end. And so if you are hitting that marker where you're already in the deadline and you haven't gotten anything, instead of going to your monitor, send an email that includes the CRA, the CTM, the sponsor, everybody down the line, so that everybody gets notified in one go. And so should anybody in CRO level not know what to do or not being sure, the sponsor is already there. And I can guarantee you the sponsor is going to immediately that day, the next day, say, hey, where are we at in this process? What's going on, right? You're holding everybody accountable at the same time, as opposed to letting it take its time to trickle up the chain, right? Normally it takes about, I think, a 48-hour period before somebody has to respond and then follow back up. So you kind of shutting it down from what a week period of waiting, you immediately have everybody on that email immediately, right? That holds everyone accountable. And it also lets them know that you are not going to wait for escalation, right? You're going to make sure that if you guys are already hitting that deadline, now I'm going to hold you responsible, right? I'm going to let your higher ups know. So that's something that I definitely recommend for anybody that does that.
Great advice. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I guess that's pretty much it. I don't know, Dr. Fox, Daniel, Dan, do you want to?
We got a question, Clara.
Yeah, I like Clara's question. Clara, that's a really good question. With all of the complaints about, and this is actually a really, really good point. I've been doing this for a while now. I've been speaking up. I've been trying to be vocal. People are starting to follow me. We're starting to pay attention. And what's really funny is it's been radio silence on the same people that we're asking help from, that we're saying this is wrong. Nothing from the CROs about resolution. Are they ignoring us? Are they aware? I know they're aware of it because I've gotten some hate mail from them, but it's been quiet.
Processing.
And what Clara said is, what would sites want from the CROs? What could we do at SOS to talk about this with the CROs? How about access to a payment system? I think that's a great idea for a
Mhm.
comparison of Excel to EDC. It's rare to get a CRO to do that, at least from what I've seen. If you have some tricks, I'd love to hear about it. But I wonder if, and this goes back to the whole, if this is another podcast, never mind. But I wonder if increasing efficiency for the CROs might cut their pay. So I don't know if they really want solutions like that to link us to the payments like that, because then they don't like do the whole route the queries through their positions. Maybe that's kind of a cynical way of thinking about it, but I love that question, Clara. Maybe we ought to bring that up at SOS. For me, from what I found, and this is kind of like what Judy was saying, at first it was very escalaty, very always trying to navigate, figuring out who to talk to, seeing what's happening. For a lot of the long-term trials, however, I started to gain a reputation as the director who wanted paid, like squeaky wheel syndrome almost, where someone saw an email from Dr. Fox, you better bet the payment's on its way. And it got to be to where I created a brand for myself as a site that would not tolerate non-payment. And therefore, when they like a reputation, like if they heard from me, they know, well, I better get on this. Now, I would love to see every single site be able to build like that. My guess is you probably need enough reputation and clinical trial tout, so to speak, for that to happen. Otherwise, you're just going to be shoved under the rug. But it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time and a lot of persistence to try to do this as a solution, Ashley. So I know we're wrapping this up. So who wants to take this question or this comment?
Oh my gosh, I got this response once recently, actually.
Well, I mean, I think that goes back to what I just mentioned, right? Instead of just having to deal with the response, you're making sure everybody's on the email. So whatever the CRO responds, the sponsor sees as well, right? So I think that's why having everybody at all levels, also a good reason why you need to make sure that you have everybody's communication email at the very beginning, at the start, so that once they respond, everybody sees, right? And so if the sponsor, that is the case with the sponsor, then start asking questions to the sponsor. But I think as Dan said or Chris said, as most points and times, it's usually not the sponsor, it's the process below, sometimes the middleman, right? I'm not aware of that personally, to be quite honest. I don't know that part end of things. But yeah, I mean, again, keeping everybody accountable. If you keep only one person on an email, nobody's going to be seeing those communications unless you're sending that email chain everywhere, right? So just keep it quick, short, and easy. Save time and have everybody included on that email.
And I could say by the time that happens, Miguel, that answer right there, it may be too late because there's a certain predatory pharmaceutical development company, hint, hint, that puts that in every single one of their contracts. And the best way that you can address that is by pushing back and saying, if you will not pay me because the sponsor does not pay you, then I have the right to go after the sponsor. And most of the time they will accept that.
You know what? That's a good. I had a question about that because I don't see. So on my contracts with a CRO, it's been with a CRO, right? And then the terms that you get paid. But I had this come up recently where they told me they were not going to pay us until they got paid. That was not in my contract. So then,
yeah, they'll try
where did that come from?
Yeah, then you have
right?
to point the contract. It's
Right.
And they do that a lot. And it depends on how the contract was written. If they snuck that in your contract where they're like, I don't have to pay you until the sponsor pays me, then yeah, I'm gonna do that. But if it's not in your contract, then your response would be, well, that's not my problem.
Exactly.
Or you have to look at the signatory. Who signed that contract? Was it the sponsor that signed the contract? In that case, the CRO, and this is the other quote CRO loophole that happens in payments, is the CRO often does not take liability for payments. They're just the middleman, so to speak. So if you need payments, you have to go to the sponsor on a legal level. It depends on who signed the contract. A lot of the big CROs are doing the proxy contracts now where they're the signatories, and then you have to do some different things.
Yeah. I was on a call probably 6 months ago with a CRO and a sponsor together talking about payments, and the CRO basically said, well, it's not our responsibility to finance the trial.
Mhm.
And so sometimes they don't get their money from the sponsors either. So I feel like we're overly critical sometimes of CROs. Um, but that doesn't mean that they're off the hook from any things either.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But what you don't want to lock yourself into is doing work without a route to get paid.
Oh yeah, when payments processing, then query resolution is processing too. Like, no, we're processing. We'll think about answering the query, but we won't.
All right, Friday wrap up. So I've been here an hour. I know that everyone has to go. They have things to do.
Let's go. We get
Um,
training. IP quarantine needs to happen.
Oh man.
So
All right.
watch YouTube later, guys.
Yeah. So everyone want to wrap up?
Yeah.
So final thoughts.
Chris,
I
Go
think
ahead.
that this is obviously a topic we're going to definitely need to cover. For sure. This is definitely going to be one of the ones for the conference. I think it's just a common issue, especially for any of those that are attending that are, new site owners.
Yep, definitely.
Judy? Yep,
No,
definitely.
yeah, that's definitely, I think, contracts, budget language, what to do in these situations. A lot of people don't know what to do. So definitely something to discuss and see how we can educate others.
Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, I think this conference will be very enlightening for many people.
I hope so. Hopefully it can help a lot of people. Ivan?
Yeah, no, I think I'm looking forward to it because obviously education here that benefits us. We're one step removed from that whole process. If this whole conversation affects us directly, right? There's a daisy chain effect. So,
All right.
Awesome.
I guess I'll be the last one to wrap up. You better bet we're going to be talking about contracts, payments, and budgets at SOS Save Our Sites. Details to follow, including subject matter experts, questions, and even potential resolutions that we might challenge our sites to consider and adopt for the future. All right.
Sounds good.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Daisy. Thank you, everyone, for a wonderful Friday roundtable at SOS conference. And I didn't mean to be the moderator. I don't know how I came into this role. I just started talking.
Natural.
You're really good at it. So
You're natural.
I blame all the podcasts I just did. I've been moderating a lot. So
If sites need to be saved from drowning, you are the lifeguard.
I will be the lifeguard. I know. Oh. Okay, here's the challenge for the next round table. We need to use CPR as an acronym that's clinical research related. Something CPR. Clinical. I don't know. Figure that out for the next round table.
Clinical payment resolutions.
Oh, he already got it.
No.
Not good.
I'm certified CPR at SOS Save Our Sites.
Sounds
There you
good.
go. Perfect,
All right.
guys. Like,
All right, thank
subscribe,
you.
and share. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.